often we're not as motivated for certain things because of past experiences have taught us that, well, if I do those things, I'm not going to get the return. No one's going to buy into what I have to say.
What is more important than motivating and helping your employees do their job better and leverage the training that they've taken up?
But isn't that adding one more touch base? Isn't that adding something else to a manager's plate and they just can't add one more thing to their plate?
You stop that. I know what you're doing. You're baiting me there.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Kirkpatrick Podcast. It is Vanessa and Jim. Jim, how are you today?
I'm good. Ready to see what comes from our time together here.
Yes. So excited that we are doing another solo episode together. I guess it's not solo, a duet. Yeah, a duet together, continuing our conversation around employee engagement and performance. So before we begin, just a few things that we want to remind you of with the Kirkpatrick update. So there are still a few weeks left to access our government year-end deals and savings. Remember, all deals are active through September 30th. So if you've been wanting to get to that 2024 goal of actually properly measuring your evaluation or your program efforts through proper evaluation, this is that time to grab the best deals. Do not let December 31st happen and you did not get to that New Year's resolution that I know you all have. There are discounts on all online U.S. broadcast-based certification programs, and we just added another one for the end of October to celebrate, obviously, Halloween. So you all better show up in your Halloween costumes. And our brand new community space and much more. A link to all the deals can be found in the show notes. And as a reminder, we are on the GSA schedule to make purchasing easier for our government and military friends. And again, thank you all for your service. And a new announcement and a new update. We have an upcoming webinar on September 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern, and Jim's going to lead this one. Just kidding, Jim. It's about AI and evaluation. I would love to have you there, but I know that you probably will want to give me a little bit of the reins on AI, but I know you're going to be there as a participant to learn more about all of the things artificial intelligence and to let's talk a little bit about genuine relationships and artificial intelligence. I know that's a little something sweet you got for us there. Make sure you sign up in the show notes. And we're really excited to have this conversation with you all about AI and technology and the future of Kirkpatrick. Oh, all right. Well, let's talk about employee engagement again, Jim. So,
I gotta ask you though, Vanessa, before you go.
Yeah.
We did that last time. I mean, You got to get along. You got to play nice together. You got to work together. Is there really more that we can say about it?
There is so much more. I haven't even gotten to required drivers.
Well, good. You're right.
Yeah. So what we're picking up on from today when it comes to evaluating employee engagement is, for me, my favorite part of level 3, I think for you too, and it's what we call required drivers and what we consider to be performance support. And so, when I design programs, I'm not just don't just design for that one program. I'm also thinking of what are some additional support materials that my participant, my learner, my target user is going to need in order to perform the behaviors that I want them to perform, right? So if it's, I got my start in software training, so we'll go there. So if it's software training, I'm, providing job aids, resources, videos, maybe implementing a digital adoption platform to give those like tips and stuff, right? So it's not just about that initial foundational training. It's about the things that are going to help ensure that the critical behaviors are happening, right? And that will also include some support from the manager. And when I personally think of employee engagement, I think we will create initiatives in that same vein where we might create an initiative or say we want, employee engagement, but we're not doing anything to ensure we are getting employee engagement. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And, last week, Vanessa, that we worked with friends, didn't we? And talking about different things. And one of them just had a newborn baby. And he was all excited about that. And I said, did you go to parent training? He says, yeah, we did. I said, do you have a book on parent training? He said, yep. I said, well, then that's really all you need to raise your child. And he said, no, not so. Right. We've already run into things that we are now responding to that aren't in the book or aren't in the training. So it's silly to think that training alone is enough to get the job done.
Absolutely. And it's all about these additional supports, and the same can go for employee engagement, right? And that is where really defining how are we going to support our employees to ensure they're engaged and performing well. And it's not just the responsibility of a manager or the HR department, right? It's the responsibility of, my opinion, it's the responsibility of all of us in an organization in various ways. What do you think, Jim?
Well, me, I like to listen and hear some key words, and I'm going to repeat two of them that you said. One of them was required. You didn't say suggested drivers or maybe drivers. You said required drivers. So let me start with that one. Then I'm going to get a second word on it, and tell me why you call them required and not. Why don't you maybe consider some of these?
So I would say they're required because I take a mindset of marketing in my entire life. And I know that in order for someone to want to even remember to buy from me, let alone to actually be inclined to buy, right? Or to opt into my thing, they need to see me or the brand 7 to 8 times. And I believe that is true for most things in our life, including employee engagement, right? We need to be touched by certain things multiple times to really feel that engagement, feel a part of the organization. And this may look like implementing employee resource groups. It may look like a community online. It may look as simple as saying, hey, welcome, to all of our new employees, on the first day or at the end of the week, or just other sorts of encouragement and motivational sort of supports. And they also help to reinforce the decision they made to join the organization, and perhaps for some of them leave another organization, right? And buy into what you were selling them in the interview, and that this is a much better place to work, right? I think we've all had the experience where we're leaving one job to move to another, and we're like, I hope the grass is greener on the other side. And people will say, well, the grass isn't always greener. And you get to another organization, you are sold like this is going to be such an amazing job, an amazing role. Everyone's like a community. We're a team in this organization. And then you get there and it's like, that's not how it is at all. Those first, let's call them 90 days, but realistically that first month is crucial for a new employee. That sets the tone for their entire life cycle at your organization.
You're using some strong words there, like another one I heard you say was ensure. You said that early on, and these required drivers ensure that ultimate success will occur. Because if you're just relying on the training or the learning or the goodwill of people, there's a lot of that, but we're trying to ensure that the behaviors occur in order to get the results, right? And that's why part of the drivers have everything to do with how well we work together, right? And how well we trust each other, how well we deal with differences of opinion. And that, to me, is tied in with ensure. We've got to start with that. So we have the foundation of relationship in order to use those drivers, which I know you're going to talk more about. What are they, in order to make sure that the behaviors happen in order to see the results? The word ensure is just so important.
So important. And it's, to quote you, it's not like leaving something up to chance, right?
Yep.
Hoping for the best, praying that things are going to work out.
Yep.
If you want something badly enough, you are going to do the things in order to ensure that they happen.
Yeah.
When you feel empowered to do those, to do that, right? And so, for me, I am very motivated to build an organizations that promote really great employee experiences, because that's very core to who I am, the human and bond and connection. And I have to do that in different ways. First things first, I'm always listening, even if someone doesn't think that I'm listening, and listening in different ways, right? Maybe I'm looking to see, we use Slack internally as our informal communication means. Maybe I'm not in the conversation in the moment, but I'm catching up and I'm seeing how people are, what people are saying. My perception of tone, I'm checking in with employees. Hey, how are you doing? Things like that. And I'm also creating supports and creating things, my required drivers, right? In order to ensure we're having really great engagement. So one thing that, and I'm not doing it all, right? So this is the other piece I think too, is that in learning, we often feel like we have to do all the required drivers or all of the listening and all of that. I actually don't do all of the things. I cast the vision and like the plan, right? Hey, these are the things that I want to see, and I want to ensure that we're working towards. But I've got team members that then execute, right? So I've got one employee who really oversees most of the staff at KP, and I put it on her as, hey, this is very important to me. Here are some of my recommendations, but what do you think is going to work best? And she started implementing like a first Friday, right? And they and the team will get together to talk about like a core value or, whatever the topic might be. We were just talking this morning in Slack informally about starting a book club, and everyone reading something together. I know that some of my employees are all about their Christian faith and they meet monthly. I joke that they meet to talk poorly about me.
Oh,
But
gosh.
the fact, I was like, is this your meeting where you guys talk crap about me? And they're like, no. And I say that to be funny because I'm very close with them, but
You're funny about that. That's good.
They meet to talk about their faith and how they're doing and how they're managing stress and burnout. And that for me is an employee resource group, right? Where others can join in and have those important conversations. And they do that during work hours, right? And that's important to me to to be able to provide that time for them. So that's some of the things that, we put in place to help ensure employee engagement here.
Now, I know we're gonna get to more specifics. People are saying, give some examples at work, but another word you used was empowered. I could have Danielle back up the tape and we could listen and you could hear it but here's
the play.
But the reason I call that out is that obviously we want people to be as internally motivated as possible. Their spirit and their faith and their self-esteem and whatever will help drive them. But we're human, and that can only take us so far. And I can tell you from working with you this last year and Danielle and the others in the team, I have more power than I had before. When there wasn't the whole organization working, as it is. And I get power from that to go out and do my job better because I know that I have your back, and we all support and we challenge each other. And so a lot of that power still needs to come from external. And that's what some of the drivers are, just trying to create a strong external force. Some people call it embolden. We're going to be more bold about things and more power. And that's what these drivers do. And you know what the neat thing is, when me or any of you go out with those drivers, pretty soon it goes from external motivation to internal, because this power and this boldness and this confidence now settles into our spirit, and then it continues on.
You said something, Jim, very powerful there. When it comes to the motivation, my perception and my belief is that often we're not as motivated for certain things because of past experiences have taught us that, well, if I do those things, I'm not going to get the return. No one's going to buy into what I have to say. So I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to peace out and go home. Right. And it's up to us as the employers to be the ones that create that force, that external force to help to change that, right? It's not up to the employee to change their mindset because we have not done our part to show them the way. And that's where those required drivers and those supports that you're putting in help to do those things. And that's where culture shift happens. And that is where, you do change the hearts and the minds of others, right? But the onus has to be on you from the business, as opposed to from the employee. And just taking it back to like the learning language, right? Likely learners have, employees, when they, learn something new or get put through a new training program or whatever, are not rewarded for changing their behavior. But they are rewarded for doing the same thing that they've always done. Why? They are able to get their job done faster. They stay in their comfort zone. It's worked in the past. So there is no motivation for changing that behavior and encouragement for going through that tough time in the beginning, when you're figuring things out and it's going to be uncomfortable and you just don't love that part. That's part of it, right? That's how you build that motivation. We're quick to say, they're just, intrinsically not motivated. We are all motivated.
Yeah,
we're just motivated by different things for different reasons. There's not, I'm going to say a very bold statement. I think that every human is motivated by something.
I agree.
Now it's up to us to find out what that is. But so go ahead.
Well, I think that some people are motivated to not get in trouble, right? Fair. Or to not be criticized, or to put themselves in a position where they're going to feel shame or something. What we're talking about here, these are drivers of esteem, drivers of culture, drivers of community, in order to do their jobs better. And I think that, one thing that, I'm getting a little specific here about some more examples of what a driver is. I have seen you many times compliment somebody when they say something or do something in front of others. Yeah. And I can't think of something more powerful than that. I mean, you can kind of whisper, hey, nice job, I saw you do that. But when you do it in front of others, there's something about bringing it out publicly that just lifts somebody's spirit and will help them have the courage to move forward. And this isn't just about every individual we're trying to either hold accountable, but it is then creating the community, isn't it? The experience collectively that the real power comes from.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying that, because it does take a lot for me to give a compliment, and not because not because of like I don't like to give them out. I feel people have to earn them. I am just the type of person that hates compliments. And don't every part of what you just said made me extremely uncomfortable on the inside, although I looked
figured it might.
calm as a cucumber on the outside, I think. But because I was taught ever since I was an infant, right? My grandfather would do something. Let's say he picked up my brother and I from school. My father would then say to my grandfather, "Thank you so much." And my grandfather would say, "Don't thank me, ask me to do it again." And that's how I was raised, right? So for me, the thanks or the compliment is the fact that you're actually giving me more responsibility. Or I used to say to my last full-time employer, "Don't thank me in a meeting. I hate all of that. Give me more work to do and leave me alone to do it." Because by you showing that confidence in me that I don't need to be micromanaged, she can run a big initiative on her own. That for me is more rewarding and motivating and encouraging as opposed to getting that. But that is my preference. And so I, as an employer, have to consciously remember often that is not the same case for probably 99.99999% of my team. And I need to be meeting them where they're at and what they want, as opposed to how I prefer that.
And that's the art, isn't it? That's the art of leadership, is knowing how different people respond. And you don't want to embarrass someone. You might just come along and say, "Hey, I noticed that," or could you do whatever it is to know what their sweet spot is for how that's going to either this isn't just about encouraging them. It's also about holding them accountable to make sure that they're actually doing the things that they've learned to do and are expected to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Want to get some do you want to get to some specifics? So what are some required drivers you think are necessary for employee engagement?
Well, I think one that is so important are touch bases. You have touch bases of, every once in a while it's how's the company doing, but more so, let's touch base here about how this big project is going, rather than everyone go out there and do it. Let's see if it works in the end. And what that means is maybe shifting an approach about something, encouraging, clarifying roles or whatever it is. And I think that is and you can obviously we can do that, virtually, and I think that's one that comes up that I think is good. And so is observation. Rather than just taking people's word, "Oh, I'm doing it," or they answered in a survey, "I'm doing it." Observation, when people know that in a positive way, somebody is watching or listening to their work, they're going to be more likely to do it right. Because what gets measured gets done is kind of an old adage kind of thing, but it can be also done in a very positive way. Here's some positive feedback. Here's some things that we could do differently. Here's some things we learned about our customers, about our patients, about our clients, that we can now adjust to and make changes. So those are two that come to my mind.
But isn't that adding one more touch base? Isn't that adding something else to a manager's plate, and they just can't add one more thing to their plate?
Oh, you stop that. I know what you're doing. You're baiting me there.
I am.
But that is performance management. What is more important than performance management in their job? They say, "Well, I've got other things I'm doing." And I'm thinking, what is more important than motivating and helping your employees do their job better and leverage the training that they've taken? I just have to walk away sometimes and not say what I'm thinking about that. Of what is more important. I'm really curious.
Great response to that, Jim. I have to say the same, right? I will get that same response. Well, but our managers are too busy to add one more thing to do the checkpoint. And I'm like, okay, I mean, you're a manager of people. Maybe there needs to be a realignment of what the roles and responsibilities are, or maybe we just need to also be more efficient, right? And understanding that, okay, maybe we're adding something more on our plate. So is that a people manager? Or is that just are they really in the right role? Because if you're promoting someone that is just a really great super user, or I think of when I would do a lot of work with help desks, and we would promote help desk employees into, to be a manager. I mean, and then they were still taking the calls and still doing, like, not actually providing feedback to the help desk employees. I'm like, well, at that point, they're just a senior help desk technician. What you need is a true help desk people manager to be having those conversations. And I also will say, for me, I think it's a cop-out because you're probably meeting in some way, shape, or form with your employee. So why can't you add in the agenda, leave, a few minutes, 10, 15 minutes at the end of the conversation to have a conversation about them?
You know what else, Vanessa? I think a lot of times is what they're doing is putting out fires and trying to deal with squabbles and misunderstandings. And I know you and I agree, we lead with engagement. We lead with the people, with the working relationships, because if the managers can put their time into that, creating that culture that you talked about, then there aren't so many fires to put out or so many disagreements. You can really then focus on things that are positively impacting the work and the people that they're working for.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also argue that a great required driver is to have like ambassadors or mentors or coaches or champions in an organization, because again, it can't all be the manager, because there are things that are going to come into play. And perhaps the relationship between the employee and the manager isn't that great. And so you don't want that to be the only way that they engage with your organization. Like, people leave for a lot of different reasons, but one of the top after pay, if not the top after pay, I'm trying to remember the stat correctly, is a toxic work environment, which is usually linked to the manager. And so if that's the case, if that's a really great employee, you don't want to lose them because of the manager. So we have to find other people to be part of their community, and to be the one to also look out for them.
How about this, man? I'm going to throw one at you here. Some people might be in learning and development. They may be instructional designers or trainers or whatever. They may say, that's nice, but that's not my job. You're talking about the job of other people to do those kind of things. I am an L&D person. I really don't deal with those kind of post-training kinds of things. What would you say to that?
Yeah, great question. I do hear that a lot. I actually just heard that last week at that event we were at. I don't see the people. And the problem for me with that is that's where actually I know you hate this part of the word, the development is, right? Like, the learning happens, can happen in many places, but traditionally the learning happens in that one event, the initial learning. With the development, that has to be afterwards. So we have to find ways to be able to reach out and be in that orbit. Here's the other thing. I wonder how much of the not being able to go out there and have conversations with others is more like, well, this is the way it's always been done. And no one's asked, hey, can we just try this? Or they try to eat the elephant. And instead, this is actually what I shared with this person that was last week at my table. I said, well, why don't you do it with something you can control? If you can't get to, the people in your organization, why don't you just try this with, let's say, your team on like a small team initiative, get the proof that this can work, and then go from there, right? So if we think about, in the context of employee engagement, perhaps it is doing something and starting some of these initiatives with your own team or your own department before saying, let's roll this whole new big initiative out there.
And again, all that you're saying is so vital. And you know what it does? It protects training investments. Because without what you're talking about, the required drivers, you might as well write a check to your favorite charity than just continue to send people to training and let nature take its course. So I always say protect the training investment by making sure that, for the major programs, not every compliance issue, but for the major ones, when they get back from the training, say, welcome back. Now let's all get to work together to make sure that we use what we learned in order to benefit whatever the mission is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we spend a lot of money on these things. And I do believe like employee engagement is something we spend a lot of money on. And a way to ensure is that you're protecting that investment is through these drivers. And you're absolutely correct. It's absolutely crucial to protect that, because what will get cut are the things that are perceived to be a cost center and employee engagement, because I can't tie engagement to a dollar amount. Like I spent $100 on that, certificate or crystal that we gave someone. Where's that return specifically?
Yeah.
And because of that, we're unable, we're at a higher risk of getting cut, much higher risk.
Yeah.
But that's where tying doing the model and showing that you can evaluate the impact of a really good employee engagement experience, and spending the time, money, energy, and resources can lead to bigger profits. And here's a simple, one, right? Profitability in the business.
Yep.
As it's impacted by a lot of things, but we all know if your employees are disengaged, they're probably not going to be creative or innovative in order to create new products or, better your offer or better your product, right? So all of those things have to happen. If I dislike where I work, I'm not going to work that hard to figure out how to make it more profitable, frankly.
Vanessa, there's something I want to say on a personal note that has everything to do with this. My father-in-law, his name is John Brown, and he was in a bad car accident, and he's basically fighting for his life, and all the nurses and the doctors are helping, trying to do that. Every time he came to my house, the first thing he'd always say is, "I just saw your latest podcast."
Oh.
Every time he says, "I just saw your latest podcast," and he said, you and Vanessa seem to work well together. And he's just always so positive about that. So now it's, when things really matter, you want people to do their job with all the encouragement and the reinforcement and recognition for really important things. And so many of our clients are working on mission critical and world critical kinds of things that this community, the practice of engagement is so important, because that way we keep the same nurses aren't going to quit or go somewhere else. They are going to say, "I've been here for 8 years. I've seen this before." So there's so much world benefit from what we're talking about.
Yeah. And I'm obviously, I'm saddened to hear about the accident and everything, and honored and touched that the podcast has been such a light for him, for the few months that we've been doing it. And those are the things that you have to think about when it comes to, employee engagement experience. For some people, these things, these required drivers, this experience, this community is the light for others during times of trouble.
That's right.
And that's most important. That's what we really need to be doing, worrying about.
Yeah. And unfortunately, his wife, my mother-in-law, did not survive the accident. And he's in a hospital bed now, trying to encourage other people that come in to encourage him. And it really is the light and paying it forward, passing it on, whatever, that not only is why we do this, but it also creates great success, doesn't it? This isn't just a feel-good thing. This is creating success no matter what kind of organization you work for.
Well, on that note, Jim, we're sending lots of love and prayers to your father-in-law and your wife and her entire family. Yeah. Friends, with that, we will leave you for today, but really think about what can you do today to inspire and engage an employee to be a little bit of a light in their life. See you soon, friends.
Thanks, Vanessa.